Hi everybody, happy Sunday. So tonight I'm in my new crafting room in the den. This this is a very small room that was my nursery that when I was a little girl. And so it's not a real big room, but it works real well for my crafting table. And this is where I put the pictures of the clock and stuff up here, but I really like this room. It's very nice to sit upstairs and not have to be in the basement for all the classes for the scan cuts. So my scan cuts also up here. And so yeah, I thought that'd be kind of fun. Just a second here. I'm just gonna skip my comments. Hello everybody. So for those of you who have never done one of the lives before, just a reminder, if you want me to be able to see your name to come through StreamYard, go to right after the class, just go to the post, and in the post there'll be a little thing that it will be a little link you can press, and then it'll let me see your name. You only have to do it once, and if you don't want me to see your name, that's fine. I can see people's names over here on my tablet, but on StreamYard I can't. So anyway, so if you want me to see your name, make sure you do that after class. It'll be in this post. You can just go back to the group and hit the little button. So hi everybody, there's all kinds of folks coming in. Hello. Okay. So tonight we're going to talk about cutting fabric. So we're going to cut some fabric specifically, I thought I'd kill two birds with one stone, right? So we're going to cut the fabric let me just stand up. I think it'd be easier for you to see. We're going to cut the fabric for Gather Together. Okay. Now, I don't normally pre-cut the fabric for applique, but it's okay to do that. So let me grab the banner here. I'll get that turned off real quick. Give me a second. Okay. Oops. Sorry, I hit the wrong side of my mouse. There we go. So we're going to start tonight by talking about the wreath part. So SVG files are a little different to work with. Sometimes they're not the native format for this scan and cut. So the native format that the scan and cut reads is FCM. So it's a little harder to work with SVG files just straight off of the CD. So like what I did is I took a USB stick, pull it out of my, okay. So I took a USB stick and I loaded my SVG files, okay, onto the stick from my CD. Yes, I'm in a different room. Who said that? Yes, I'm in a different room. This is my crafting room upstairs. And this is where my scan and cut is, and now all my card making stuff. So this is actually a really nice room. It was my nursery. For when I was a baby, this was my bedroom and nursery. And it's a very small room. It's about 8 feet long and maybe about 7 feet wide. So it's very small. It was just big enough for a crib, and a couple little pieces of furniture. So anyway, so yeah, it's kind of cool to be in here. All right. So this has my SVG files on it. So they're on the CD with the design. So you can get your CD for Gather Together. Okay. And the SVG files come with it. Now you don't have to pre-cut these. You can just cut them in the hoop. That is absolutely fine. But I thought there was quite a lot of applique in this, and I specifically felt that it would be nice to do it with this one after I did cut this one in the hoop, and it was kind of tedious because there was a lot of pieces in it. So I thought, well, let's just cut them out, and I'll just show everybody how to work with your SVGs. The word gather also was very nice to cut out, and so that you didn't have to pre-cut, you didn't have to trim it in the hoop. Sorry, my clock's going to strike now. So, and then the words together, these would be okay to cut out in the hoop. So if you don't want to cut it out in the hoop, if you don't want to pre-cut with your cutting machine, you don't have to. But it is just, especially with cursive letters, I find it easier to pre-cut. So, but that wreath was a little on the tedious side, cutting all those pieces. Okay. So let's talk about SVG files. So The SVG files that come with this, there are quite a few. And if you give me a second, I'm going to switch over the camera here. There are quite a few SVG files with it, and they're grouped differently. So there's two sets of, there's like a part 1, a part 2, and a part 3 for the embroidery. And so they have the SVGs kind of grouped that way. And but I'll use some one way and some another way. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little bit in the software tonight too. Okay, so if you give me a second, I'm just going to switch this over so you can see the book over here on my other camera. So, all right, a second. Go to this one. I'll change the camera or the microphone too, so you can, when I'm headed that way, you can hear me a little better. Okay. So here we're over here at my scanning CAD, and I'm going to go ahead and plug my USB back in to it if I can see it. There we go. Okay. And I can see your comments over here because I've got my tablet next to me too. So, all right. So also on the CD, in with the SVG files, there is a PDF file that gives you some guidance about what is going on with these pieces. Okay, so what I did is I just stapled these together. I'll take the staple out as I'm going here. And I pre-cut my fabric, so we'll talk about that too. Okay, so this is part 1. And not all of the SVGs files come with these, but this was nice that it did because it kind of gave me some pictures of what the pieces were that I'm going to be using. So the way Gather Together worked was in part 1. So let's just talk about part 1 first, and then part 2 and 3 is going to have a different method. Okay. So in part 1, which is going to be our wreath, there's a bunch of different fabrics, and you use fabric 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10. So like when you're doing the cutting, you probably, if you're going to do this with me starting next week, you can see that, fabric 1 is, the cream color for the main body, and fabric 2 is the tanner color, and fabric 3 is the end pieces on the end of the pillow. And then 4 through 9 are the braids, and then also most of the leaves and the applique pieces. So number 4 through 9, and also 10 are the applique pieces and the braid. Okay. So what I did when I started looking at my leaves here, it told me in my instructions over here what fabrics that I wanted to do. And I just decided, which ones were going to be which. So I said fabric 4 was the gold, fabric 5 was my green, 6 was the rust, 7 was the red, 8 was the tan from the borders, and I use that for the acorns. And then fabric 10 is going to be the dark brown for the little tops of the acorns. Okay, so I just figured that out. When I looked at this and it told me how I was going to be sewing it, I just picked fabrics. Okay, so if you look at this piece of paper, this is the SVG file that came with the PDF file that came with the SVGs. You can see that it has it listed as fabric 4, fabric 5, fabric 6, fabric 7, fabric 8, and fabric 10. Okay, so when I started looking at this, I could also tell in fabric 4, like my gold here, that these SVG files were like, when they do the tack downs and everything for this applique, they actually do all of the like fabric 4 things together, all the fabric 5 things together, all the fabric 6 things together. Okay, so when I had sewn this once before, so I knew that. So we're going to be placing all of those fabrics at the same time. So they're not going to be separate. They're all like, there's one placement line for all the fabric 4 pieces and one placement line, for fabric 5 and so on. So they group them together like that in the file. Okay.
So for these, it works fine. When we get to part 2 and 3, I'll show you what I have to do to make it work better. But for this one, fabric 4 is all gold. So I can just use this file and cut all 3 of my gold pieces out of one piece of fabric. And I can do the same thing with fabric 5 and so on. Okay, so what I did to determine how big I needed to make those fabrics is, let's bring you up here so you can see the screen. I went in and I retrieved my pattern for fabric 4. So let's just do fabric 4 first. And I'm going to go to my stick because that's where those SVG files are. Now, you can't see the name of the design. I happen to know that they put 10 first. So I'm going to go to fabric. I think it's the second one is fabric 4. So if you click on it, it says here that it says part 1 fabric 4. Okay, so I know it's there. And you can see there's 2 leaves, 2 like maple leaves or oak leaves, I should say, and then 1 kind of plainer leaf. So that one is going to be, I had chosen gold for fabric 4. So I'm going to click OK and bring this up. So if you look at this file, when I touch it, can you see that it's all of those pieces are all in one piece? Okay, so that's the difference when you're working with SVGs. If I were working with an FCM, I would be able to touch each one of those individual pieces separately. And with the SVGs, they come into the machine in one piece. Okay, so when we get to the second and third section, that will become into a factor because they put all of the parts together, but they aren't all the same color of fabric. Now this one is, so this part is all the same fabric. So this is all going to be gold. So it's okay that it's all together. You know, that's fine that it's all together in one piece. So I'm not going to do anything with this file other than just cut it. Okay. So what I did, so I knew what size to make my fabric. So I have my fabrics cut here. Just a second and grab them out of my bag. What I did with my fabric is I cut my fabric and I cut heat and bond light. I have tried lots of bonding agents when it came to fabrics, and I have found that heat and bond light works the very best. I've tried all kinds of different ones, and these cut the best. Okay. Now I am going to cut these with a bonding agent, obviously, so that I can put them in the hoop and then just kind of press them down so they'll hold still when I go to do the embroidery. So what I did then is I made my gold. So that was fabric 4. And what I did is I looked at this design up here. So I'm going to go back. If I go back up a little bit, you'll be able to see the screen a little better. I'm going to go in here. I just opened up number 4. I hit edit and I hit object edit, and I want to see how big this was because I needed to be able to, you know, cut my fabric. So I wanted to have it about the right size. So I just opened this up, this whole pattern. You can see there's 2 leaves. There's the 3 leaves, I'm sorry, on there. So I'm just going to hit the size button right here. And it tells me that this is 3.5 by about 4.5, 4.6. Okay. So what I did is I just added about a 1/2 inch or so and thought, okay, well then I can cut my fabric about 5 by 4 so that I know about what, so this was about, you know, 1/2 inch, you know, is 4 and this is about 5. So you don't use shape flex. No, I do not use shape flex to cut these, if you're cutting these with the scan and cut, you have to use something to stabilize your fabric. And you want something that's going to adhere down to your embroidery background fabric. So what I've tried all kinds of bonding agents, and heat and bond light is what you want to use. That I've tried different ones, and this is what works for me. It bonds very well into the fibers of the fabric. It doesn't come off, and you can see I've left the paper on the back. So I bonded it onto the front, you know, to the back of the fabric. And then I just leave the paper on. And on these, I just wrote which ones they were. So I knew, you know, right on the piece of paper what it was. Okay. So fabric 4, so I open my design up. Fabric 4 is this gold. And I cut it 5 by 4 because that would accommodate this design. Okay, do you use starch on the fabric? I don't, because I'm using heat and bond. I don't need to starch it if I'm using heat and bond. It's very stiff and very stable. Yes, I'm going to get to that in a little bit. Who asked about ungrouping it? Yes, you can, but you cannot ungroup it in the machine because this is an SVG file. And that's why I wanted to talk about the SVGs. You can't ungroup the SVGs with the machine. It is not the native format. We have to do that in the software. So when we get to the second part, we will do that. Okay. So in this case, I want these all to be the same color. So we're just going to go with the designs just as they are. And we're going to do something else, one other thing to them too. All right. So, this was number 4. I cut my paper then about a 1/2 inch, or my fabric and my heat and bond light, about a 1/2 inch bigger, length and width. Okay. So what we're going to do, give me a second here. I'm going to get my fabrics out of the way. We can put multiple fabrics on the mat though. And I am going to cut these with a standard blade. You can do this with your rotary blade if you want. But the rotary blade just takes a long time to cut, and I want to get these done. So I'm going to cut these on, what I've got here, there's 2 options for your mat. And we've gone through lots of fabric cutting in the past. So I have 2 other classes on video that are just on fabric cutting and what to do. But what I'm going to do here is I have my low tack mat with one of those high tack adhesive sheets on it that's super sticky for fabric. Okay. The other option would be the fabric mat, which is the gold mat. Okay. This one's also extremely sticky. But what I'm finding is that if I get anything on those sticky mats, like in this case, I had felt, the mat is not sticky enough now for paper. So I've kind of gone back to the high tack adhesive sheets that I can replace the sheet on my either standard, or I usually use the low tack mat, and I just mark it fabric here. And this is what only thing I use it for. Okay. So mine is the high tack adhesive sheet that I have applied to the low tack mat, and see how sticky it is. And this will work for my fabric. Okay. So I like to use a standard blade. I'm also going to use my, standard auto blade here, my black holder. Now you notice that there's a letter F on the side of mine. I have a blade and blade holder that I only use for cutting fabric. So just like I have fabric scissors, I have just got a blade and blade holder I only cut fabric with. This is the one that does not have the letter F on it that I use for everything else, like, paper and everything else. Okay. So this is my fabric blade. So I'm going to put that one in, and this is my auto blade. So it will adjust itself. And like I said, you can use your rotary blade if you'd like. And I got that out if you want to. I find this takes a lot longer to cut. So it's fine. And you would cut this with the fabric right side up on a different mat. Okay, so I would choose a standard mat. I would remove the paper from my heat and bond, and then I would cut my fabric right side up. But I always cut my fabric face down with the paper side up. Okay, so in that case, I have my design up here for, where'd my stick go? Here it is. Okay, so I have my number 4 color gold. I'm sorry, I got to get up a little bit so you don't see the glare. There we go. This is that number 4 fabric design, and I want to use this on my mat. So what I'm going to do is I am going to cut this face down. I always cut my fabric with the fabric down on the mat, and I like, okay. So I'm going to use my fabric. Okay, I've got my fabric. I've got my heat and bond light on the back. And then I'm going to apply this to my mat. But in this case, you know, the designs were also face up. So I have to mirror all of my designs if I'm going to cut them with my fabric down, because we want them to lay correctly when we go to put them in the hoop. So I am going to take this design that is all in one piece, and I am going to click the mirror button on every single one of these. So I'm going to click this mirror button, and it has mirrored it. So now I can lay my fabric face down on the mat and it will cut correctly. Okay, does everybody understand that? And we've gone through this a couple of times too. I always cut my fabric face down on the mat. Okay, I'm having a little trouble seeing the comments, sorry. So what I'm going to do is the first one here, let's just start. I'm going to take this one. This was number 4, fabric 4 gold. I'm just going to lay this down on my mat. Okay. And I'm going to bring the design approximately where it needs to be up here on my screen. And I can tell from looking at the squares on my mat about where it's at. Okay. We'll do a scan here in a little bit, but I'm going to bring it down to about where it needs to be. I may need to alter it slightly. Okay. So we'll just kind of get it approximately. Okay. So there's our first fabric. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut several of these. Let's see. Fabric number 5. A second here. Fabric number 5 was my green. Okay. So let's go get fabric number 5 design. So I'm going to click OK. And then I can hit the add button, just like we do on the sewing machine. I'm going to add my pattern. Whoops, sorry, hit the wrong one here. Add retrieve data. Sorry, hit the wrong button. And then we're going to go back to the stick. And we know that the first one was 10. The second was 4. And I think the next one is 5. So let's take a look here. You have to touch them. Yeah, fabric 5. Okay, I'm good with that one. And that one, if I can find it here. Yeah, that one here was this one. Okay. And now that one, I'm going to edit it. And I'm going to make sure I got the right one. I think I did. Sometimes, let's just try it again. Sometimes I struggle because they don't always come up with the lines around them. So let's just cut one at a time. It might be easier. We could do several, but let's just cut one at a time so we don't get them mixed up. Okay. So here's number 4 again. I wish this was. Okay. Sorry, I can't quite get the right angle. It's a little hard because of the lights in here. I'm trying to get the right angle so you can see the screen. Okay. So this was number 4 again. I want to make sure I got the right one. All right, number 4. We'll just do number 4 and then we'll cut them in each individually. So yeah, number 4, it says right here. Okay. We're going to edit it. We already know how I found the size to cut my fabric because I looked it up under Object Edit, the size, and that tells me how big it is. Okay. All right. And then I'm going to hit the mirror button so that I know that is going to, because I am cutting face down. Okay. So let's go ahead and hit OK. OK again. And then I'm going to scan this so I know where that piece of paper is. Okay, so let's scan it so we know where the paper is. And we'll know that we've got it in the right spot. So I'm just going to cut a bunch of these pieces tonight. Okay. Pull my scan and cut forward just a little bit. Okay, so here's my paper. All right, and up here on the screen you can see where my paper is, and here's the design. And we already mirrored it, so we know it's in the right spot. So I'm just going to pull it down and make sure it's on my paper and my fabric. I think it looks pretty good. And we're going to click OK. All right, now again, this is my auto blade. I'm going to click Please Select, and I'm going to click Cut. And like I said, you can do multiples on the mat at the same time, but sometimes I like to do just one at a time because then I know I've got it right. And I am going to use my brayer just to make sure that fabric's well adhered to my mat. Okay, so here's my leaves, and we have mirrored them because I'm face down. I'm going to hit start, and let's watch it cut. So this is our first one. So that's how I determined the size of my fabric. I just opened up the design in the machine and added about a 1/2 inch. No, I'm just doing the gold right now. This is fabric number 4. I didn't do the green because sometimes I have trouble and I get them mixed up. So there's so much alike. I'm just going to cut one at a time just for safety for tonight. Okay. We'll be able to do some of the other ones together. We'll do these little ones together, and we'll cut these leaves separately because the designs all look the same and I don't want to mess them up. Okay. Because I don't have a whole lot of extra fabric. All right. So here is our leaves. I'm just going to pull this up. So here's our gold leaves. They're face down. And then these will be used on my pillow. Okay. Does it cut easier when you leave the paper on the back? I think it does, Shannon. Yes. So when I do the leaves here, so let me see if you can see this on the camera. I'll pull my pillow up here for a second. We can look at these gold leaves. Okay. So here's one of the leaves. Okay. And this is going to fit right in here like that. And see, look, they're right because I got them the right way. Yay. So those are right. And then this one will be up here. And then there's kind of a plain one over here. Okay. All right. So let's cut some more. I'll pull these off. Yeah, the leaves are very easy to get mixed up. So I think I'm just going to cut them individually, if that's okay. And then we will cut some of the small pieces together. Okay, so here's my leaves. I'm going to put the gold leaves into my baggie. All right, then fabric 5 is the green. Did you say how much you increased the size of the cut? I did not change the size. I have done these. They're okay. I normally do not change the size. There are times when I've had to, but the way Kimberbell digitizes, they bring their designs into the fabric. So I did not change the size. I'm just going to cut them as they are. Okay. All right. So let's do number 5. Let's do fabric 5. And you guys are in charge of making sure I mirror everything. Okay. So we're going to retrieve the data from the stick. We're going to go, we know this one was 4. So I think this one was number 5. Fabric 5. Okay. So this is going to be my green. I had determined that. So here's my fabric 5. And I'm going to go ahead and edit that. I'll show you again the sizing. So here's the size. So that was 3.37 by 4.14. So I cut this about 5 by 4 as well. I added about a 1/2 inch. Okay. That's how I determined how big it was. And then I'm going to mirror it. So you guys are in charge of helping me keep them mirrored. Okay. So then I'm going to go ahead and put my green fabric on the mat. These just look so alike. I just don't want to mess it up because I don't have any extra fabric. And I'm going to use my brayer, and we're just going to make sure. So fabric side down, we've mirrored it. Okay, got the mirror button. And now I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And then we will scan so we know that we've got it in the right spot. So no, I did not increase the size. These actually, I've tried them and they seem to work very well. Most of the Kimberbell digitizing, they move the design or the satin stitches and stuff inward. So they put them inward so that way it's okay. All right. Okay, so here's my fabric this is my green with my fabric 5. All right, so let's look up here on the screen. This is and I'm going to pull this down so that it's onto my fabric. We've already mirrored it. I can check it if I'm unsure. This little blue button right here is the mirroring button. Okay. I'm going to click OK. OK, one more time, and now we can cut. So I'm going to hit please select, cut. So in this case, these again are all in one piece and they're all the same color. Okay, so we can just cut it one time and we don't have to worry about what's going on with the different colors. So I'm going to hit start, and now we're going to cut the green. These last three we can do together. Okay, I'm always afraid with the leaves that I'm going to mess them up. So, and then I think fabric 6 is the rust. So we'll do those first, and then we'll go back and do these other three together. Because I did cut some of them together before, but the leaves, I was a little afraid that I might mix them up or something, and they wouldn't be right. And like I said, I don't have hardly any fabric left, so I don't want to mess up my cuts. Because I'm actually going to use these next week. Or not next week, but we'll be using them in 2 weeks. Okay, so here's our design. I'm going to pull this up. Again, we mirrored that. I'm going to pull my leaves off. So here's my little leaf and my 2 oak leaves. Okay, so there's the green ones. So we've got 2 of those and the small one. So there's the green leaves. Okay, so is this making sense to everybody? Now, if you need more basic information about the cutting, go back to my YouTube channel, Sew Along with Jan, go to the playlist called Scan and Cut, Brothers Scan and Cut, and there are 2 or 3 other fabric cutting videos in there, okay, so that you can see a real basic fabric cutting. This I wanted to talk more about the SVG files. Oh, why do you see the white? It's from the paper, Jan. There, you know, the paper on the back of the stuff is there. The paper is on the back of the stuff, and it's just the paper showing. It's fine. The paper sometimes loosens a little bit. So, okay, so that was fabric 5. So let's go look at fabric 6. So let's go get fabric 6. That's going to be my rust. So let's go get fabric 6, and then I'll show you how to combine the numbers. Okay, so let's go back and get fabric 6. So retrieve the data. Right tip. Oh yeah, right on the paper. Yes. So what I did is I wrote everything, and then on the actual PDF file. See, I just wrote what everything was here and what size I cut it. On here, I just printed it off. Now, not all SVG files have that, so you could write it on the back of your paper like I did on the back of this too. See, I also wrote it on the back of the actual fabric with the paper on it. Okay. All right, so we knew that was 4. This one was 5. Must be 6. So let's see. SVG, yeah, fabric 6. All right. So then this one again, I'll show you how I determine my size. I edited, I hit the sizing button, and I just looked here. So it was about probably 3.5 by about, maybe 5. I might have done 5. 4.5 or 5. Let me see what I cut mine. 4 by 6. So I just cut it a little bit bigger. So at least a 1/2 inch bigger. Okay. All right. So we got that. Now we also know that we need to mirror this. All right. So I'm going to hit the mirror button to mirror this. So I just mirrored it, and I'm going to click OK. And OK one more time. I always check to make sure I've mirrored. It's better to check twice. And then I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to scan on this one because I'm going to put my fabric on here. I'm laying my fabric side down. I'm going to use my brayer. I love my little brayer. This is like my favorite tool, just to make sure it's well adhered to my mat. And then I'm going to click the scanning button and start. So we're going to watch it scan. And then the next one, we'll do the last 3 colors all at the same time, because those are a lot different. I did not change. Okay, so the reason I'm looking at the size, Kate, is because I needed to know how big to make my fabric pieces to cut out of. Okay, so that is the only reason I'm looking at the size. I am not increasing or decreasing it. I looked at the size to determine how big my fabric needed to be. All right, because I wanted to be able to cut my fabric to the appropriate sizes. So that was the way I could do it, was by looking it up in the machine to see how big the design was. Does that make sense? That's the only reason. I'm not increasing it or decreasing it. I just wanted to see the size of my fabric. So I knew how big to make my fabric and my heat and bond light for each color. And I wrote that down here. And I increased the size by about 1/2 inch so that I could have a little extra. Does that make sense? The USB, yes, the USB is in the SVG files are on my USB that I showed you earlier, and they're in the machine. So yes. Yes, that is correct, Kate. I'm just looking at it for reference to know how big to make my fabrics. I did not have to change the size. The sizes are good on these, okay? And they do line up very well. I've always had real good luck with the Kimberbell stuff. So they do line up well. All right, so here's my design. Here's my fabric. I'm going to pull it down here so that it's on my fabric. Okay. I'm going to check edit, make sure that I remembered to mirror before I cut. Okay. So here's the last batch of leaves. So that way we're done with the leaves and then we can do the rest of them together. So I'm going to click OK. And OK one more time. So I know that I've got my design down here on my fabric. And I'm going to click please select cut. And we're going to start cutting. So I hope that makes sense. So mostly what we're talking about now is working with these SVG files. I'm assuming that you may have done a little bit of cutting on your Scan and Cut with fabric. And I have either two or three videos that I have cut fabric. So please go back and reference those basic videos if you need more help learning to cut fabric. I use my these high-tack adhesive sheets and my standard blade. I actually really like the standard blade better than I like the rotary blade, because I want to get them done. See how quickly those cut? And I'm just cutting through. I have my standard auto blade in. I'm cutting through, and I have my speed at about 3. Okay, so that way it just cuts through. All right, so I'm going to pull this up. Oops. See, sometimes the paper comes off. So here's my next set of leaves. And these were the rust ones. This was fabric number 7. I think this was fabric, no, 6. I'm sorry. 6. So here's my rust ones. I'm going to pull these off. We knew we mirrored them. So here's my fabric. Okay, so here's my leaves. Here's a smaller one. Yeah, go back and look at those too, because they're on YouTube. If you go back to YouTube, Sew Along with Jan, and look up the playlist, it's under Brother Scan and Cut. Okay, so I've got my 3 leaves then that were out of my rust fabric in my bag. All right. So this piece of paper, then we've done 4, 5, and 6. So let's look at 7. So here's 7 is the red. 8 is my tan for my little acorn bottoms. And then 10 is the dark brown that I'm going to use for the acorn tops. Okay. So again, I have opened up the designs, and we won't do it this time, but I have opened up the designs in the machine to figure out approximately how big I need to make my fabric. Okay. So the red fabric needed to be about 2.5 by 4.5. So I cut this, here's my red fabric, and I cut it 2.5 by 4.5. my heat and bond light, 2.5 by 4.5, and I adhered them. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to put these fabrics on here on the mat. And I'm going to put all three of these colors on here at the same time. So I've got my red. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to the brown. Let's see. Yeah, the 8 was the brown for the bottoms of the acorns. So is the pumpkin also an SVG? Yes. So we'll do that in a little bit. Okay, Shannon. So this one needed to be about 2 by 6 because they happened instead of this orientation. I wish they would have put the pictures the same as they actually made the designs. So the acorns were like all in a row, and I wish they would have made these pictures the same as what the actual designs were. So I made my piece of fabric 2 by 6. So this is my tan for my acorns. So I made it 2 by 6. I'm just going to put it down here. It doesn't matter where it is. I kind of try to make it kind of straight when I put it on just to help me. And then fabric 10 is the 4 little tops for the acorns. Okay. So here's my fabric 10. And I determined I needed it to be about 2 by 3 for that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stick that down here also. Like that. And then I'm going to use my brayer and make sure that all my fabrics are on here. Like that. Okay. So now let's go get our designs. And we have to, and you're in charge of making sure I get them all mirrored. Okay. So we're going to retrieve the data. Now we know 10 was the first one on the stick because they put them in like numeric order. So 10 is the first one. Oops, sorry. It's this one. And it says 10. So it'll say right over here. Okay. That's the only disadvantage to SVGs. You can't see it until you actually touch it. So here's the 4 little acorns. And you kind of can't see them too well. Sorry. There's a little bit of a glare up here. There we go. If I get it just above it, it's usually pretty good. So there's the little acorns. Okay. So I know the acorns are going to be down in this vicinity. So I'm just going to pull these down. Okay, so I know they're going to be down around the 4 line. I can see the grid lines, and I'm just going to pull it down. We'll do all the scanning here in a minute. Okay, so now I'm also going to edit, and I'm going to object edit, and I'm going to mirror those. Okay, so they're mirrored, and I'm going to click OK. One more time, and then I'm going to add. So I want to add my retrieve data and my stick, and I see 4, 5, 6, and let's see, I think we need 7. Was it 7 is the red? So this should be 7. Yeah, 7, fabric 7, and it only had 1 leaf and 1 small leaf. So I'm going to click OK. And my red is kind of up in this area, so I'm just going to leave them in that area. And then I'm going to hit edit, object edit, and then we're going to mirror that one because we need to make sure they're all mirrored. Okay. I'm going to click OK. And then I'm going to click OK one more time, and then we're going to add one last one, which is the acorns, and that's number 8. So we're going to hit add, retrieve data from the stick, and that's going to be, let's see, 10, 4, 5, 6, 7. This should be 8 here. Yeah, so there's my little acorn bottoms. Okay. And I'm going to click OK. Going to bring those down here. And they're about in this area. So that way we know they're approximately in the right area. I'm going to hit edit, object edit, and mirror because I am cutting these face down with the fabric face down. Okay. So if you're not sure if you got a mirror, just go click on the one you want, object edit, and make sure the little button's blue. I always check before I start cutting to make sure I got them. So they're all mirrored. I just did each one, okay, and they're all mirrored. All right, so now we can scan. so that we know that we're going to have them in the right place, because we got 3 different ones. I'm going to hit the scan button and start. Now let's just watch it scan. So this is one way to work with SVG files. These all needed to be cut out of the same color of fabric. So I just am doing them just straight off the stick. The next section, we're going to have to do a little work with it. Okay. All right. So here's all my 3. Let's go back up here to the screen. You can see where the fabrics are now. So my red leaves are right here. I want to make sure that that's on fabric number 7. And here's my acorn bottom, or tops, I should say. And those are going to be on the brown. And that was fabric 10. And here's my acorns. And those are on the lighter brown, and they're on fabric 8. So I can cut all of these at the same time. I'll use my brayer to make sure that they're well adhered to my mat. And I would also tell you, you can see that I actually did write on the back of the heat and bond paper so that I knew what colors they were, so I knew what everything was. Okay. Sometimes it's just easier to be better than be safe than sorry, right? Okay, so we know they're all mirrored. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to click cut. And yeah, I have this at my regular auto, and I also have it on the speed of 3, which is about where I cut most of my stuff. So I'm going to click start. So now it's going to cut all 3 of these at the same time. And I could have done the same thing with the leaves, but the designs were so close to the same, I didn't want to mess them up. So it's going to, now the only time I cannot do this and cut all like several different fabrics at once is if your fabrics are significantly different in thickness, because the machine, as you notice, only checked the blade one place. So it's important that your fabrics are all about the same. So if you're going to be cutting like felt and you're going to be cutting a cotton fabric, you can't really cut them at the same time because the machine will only adjust one time. So these I know will be fine because they're all the same type of fabric. And I'm just using, regular quilting cottons. All right, so it's doing the little acorns. So yes, I hope that I'm not being, I know it's a little bit, this is a little more advanced because I'm not showing you everything step by step, because I've already done that and we've cut things before, but the SVGs are just different to work with. So I would refer you back to a couple of those other videos. So here's the red. This was fabric 7. Okay, so here's the red. You can see they're cutting beautifully. Okay, so here's the red. And here's a smaller leaf. So there was just one red bigger leaf and one smaller leaf of the red. Okay, so I'll put these in my baggie. And then here's all the little acorn tops. Here's the acorn tops. Okay, so here's all the 4 of them. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So here's all those little acorn tops. All right. Put those in my baggie. Hopefully, they're sticking to me. And then, whoops. And then these are the acorn bottoms. So I'll pull this off. So here's all the bottoms. And this is the same fabric that I used on like the ends of my pillow. So here's the acorn bottoms. Okay. So then now when we go to do this wreath in the class in a couple weeks, these are all cut out already, and all we have to do is put them down, and it's going to be a lot easier. These were a little tedious to cut, but if you don't want to pre-cut, you don't have to. You can just cut them in the hoop. That is absolutely fine. All right, so I'm going to put my acorns in my baggie. Okay, so these are all the items for the wreath, which was the first like 5 different kinds of fabric. So these are all my leaf pieces, okay? Or I should say my wreath pieces for the wreath section. So I'll show that to you again. You pull this back so you can see the wreath. So that's all the little pieces for this. So there's the reds, okay? I had a green. I had a different green last time. I ran out of green. And here's the acorn tops and bottoms, okay? And the rust wreath, green wreath, and the gold wreath, all right? So that's all the pieces for that. And they're all pre-cut, ready to go. All right, so those were all SVG files that were in, it was several pieces, obviously, that were all the same color. All right, so this first section had all these different fabrics that were all the same color, but they had like 4 pieces you needed. Okay, because these designs can't be broken apart in the machine, we need to do something when we get ready to do the next section. So I'll show you what I mean. If I touch this design here, whoops, let's go back a page. If I touch the leaves up here, this is, again, all in one piece, these leaves right here, okay? If I hit edit, and object edit, this is the editing area. Can you see here where we mirrored it, of course? But down here, this little button right here is the group and ungroup button. And you can see that it is grayed out because I can't do anything. Select some patterns. Okay, well, I did, but it won't let me do anything with those. Okay, because it's not the native format for this machine. So when we get ready to cut the next section, which we're going to now, those pieces need to be in multiple colors in the same design, because they put all of the pieces together on one thing. And I don't like it that they do that. I wish they wouldn't, because it makes it hard for people if you don't do software much. Second, I've got a bunch of hairs on my mat I was trying to get off. Okay, so we're done with these right now. So now we're going to move on and talk a little bit about the other type of SVG files that are on here. The next section, there's 3 hoopings. So how they did it on the pieces of paper is they divided it within this PDF file by parts. So like part 1 was the wreath, and part 2 was the first part of gather. So like here's G, and then the other is down here, and then the first part of together. Okay, so the letters. But I wanted all of these pieces to be in different colors. I think they might, Cindy, use a scan and cut, but the thing is, SVG files with them, when they're not the native format, they want to put a format on that almost everybody can use no matter what machine they have. Does that make sense? And just because our machine doesn't read them the same way, like if I use them, the SVGs in a Cricut, or if I use them in a Silhouette, they come up differently. But I also have to use software with those. But this is a very simple fix, okay? So this part 2 that has all of this stuff in, as you can see, I have multiple colors on here. So I brought them open, and I figured out how big each one was. So here's, one of the T's, the bigger T, I wanted it to be green, and I cut it 3.5 by 4. So I just looked at this one, I can look at just the sizes. They actually gave me the sizes. I did open them up in the machine just to verify that the sizes were correct. So I cut my green 3.5 by 4. I cut, so there's T, and then the O in the brown, 4 by 3.5. So I just added about 1/2 inch or so. T, G together. So G, 3.5 by 3.5. The E, 2.5 by 3.5. So I just went through. I wanted these all different colors. So here's T, O, G, E, and then the other T, okay? And then gather, the whole word gather, I wanted to cut out in that dark brown. So what I did is I brought it up and put them together so that I could get the G and the ather all on one piece of fabric. So that was 11 by 4.5. All right. So if you need to go back, that's why I wanted to hold these papers up so you could see the sizes of the colors. So if I hold these papers up, then you can go back and look at them on the video. Okay. So now we have all these other little pieces then. So the first one I think we'll do is we'll do gather, and then we'll do the letters all together in one hooping, because the gather part is pretty good size. So we'll do that separate. Okay. But when I bring this up in the machine, so now I have to find this other part. Let me show you what happens. Hit the wrong button again. So let's see. Must be down in this area. That's 7. This must be 8. Yeah. Let's go down another page. Okay, so this one is part 2 is what I'm looking for. Okay. So here's part 2, and that's what I want. See, it has the T, all the letters, but see, it doesn't look anything like this piece of paper, does it? I wish they would have made it look like this on the paper too, because it would have been a little easier to visualize. But here's all of my letters. Well, let me hit OK. Now, see, this is all one piece, right? Okay, so how are we ever going to figure out a way to get all those individual colors on there with it being in one piece? So if I go into edit and object edit, see, I can't do anything because that ungroup is grayed out. So I can't do anything. So this is how you fix it. And it's super easy, but you do have to use the software. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to show you how to do this. It's super easy. Because basically all you have to do is open it and send it back to the machine. So if you give me a second, I'm going to share my screen. Share my screen. I have to get the right buttons here. Just a second. Okay, and then I'm going to need to go to this one, make it bigger. And then I'm going to go to Canvas Workspace. So I like to use the Canvas Workspace online. So I have gone to a browser window, and hopefully you can hear me. Maybe I should switch my camera too. Just like, let me switch my microphone over quick because I'm facing the other direction. Let me change my mic because then you can hear me a little bit better, I think.
Okay. So hopefully you can hear me. I'm pointing towards the microphone now. All right. I'm going to go to another browser window, and I'm going to open up canvasworkspace.brother.com. You can also use the one that you download to your computer if you prefer that version of the software. I like to use the one online. So I'm just going to do that. I'm on that website right now, and I'm going to click log in, and I'm going to log in to my account. Now I have already hooked up my computer to my scan and cut. So my account to my scan and cut. So everything is going to be wireless. Okay. So give me a second here. I'm going to move my tablet over here in case there's a question while I'm working on the computer. All right. This is where it tells you the PC version of the workspace is upgraded. So you can download your PC version. I just don't like it very well, so I still don't use it much. I use it when I have to. Okay. So this is my Canvas Workspace account. I'm going to click New. And what we're going to do is super, super easy. So all I need to do is I need to get this design in here. I need to make it an FCM file. So in other words, I need to make it the native format for my machine so that it will, I can break it apart and change where the designs are. Okay. So all I'm going to do, I'm going to go up here to the top where it says the word SVG. There's a little icon right here. It says SVG. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to choose a file. And I've got the files also on my computer under this folder that says SVG Gather Together. So I'm just going to go grab the design for part 2, because that's what we're going to cut is part 2. So here's part 2. Okay. And I'm going to click open. And then I'm going to click OK over here. And all I've done is brought this open in the software and see, look, I can get to each individual piece. Can you see me clicking on them? Each individual piece of this design. Now I can get to all the different pieces so I can cut it out of all the different fabrics. I've done nothing to it other than open it up in the software. All right. Now I want to send it back to my scan and cut. I'm not going to use a USB this time. I'm going to download it and use the wireless connection. So I'm going to click download. I'm going to choose scan and cut transfer. If you do not have it set up, this will be grayed out. Okay. If you want to use a USB, click download to PC and choose a USB. You can also do it that way. I'm going to go ahead and use scan and cut transfer. I'm going to send it back to my machine wirelessly. It is now done. Okay. And click closed. And let's go ahead and we'll do section part number 3 as well, because part number 3 is the same way. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm not going to save this. I'm just going to open a new paper. Oops, I didn't want to hit that, but that's all right. I'm just going to hit a new piece of paper. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring open my SVG or click the SVG button, choose my file, and this time we're going to get part 3. So we have them both. Part 3 is down here, part 3. Actually, let's just do part 2 first. I don't want to get everybody confused. Let's just do part 2 first. Okay, because I want to show you something in the machine first. So let's do part 2. I'm going to go ahead and stay logged in there, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute, and then we'll come back in a minute. Okay, so let me do, let's see, where's my stop? Well, here's my stop. All right, so let's go back to the machine for a second. So this is the one that we've got on here. I'm always losing my stick. Where did it go? Here it is. This is the one that's all in one piece. So obviously this one's not going to work for us. So I'm just going to get rid of that. We don't want it. That's the one that was right on the stick. So now I'm going to go back. I'm going to retrieve data, but this time we saved it via the internet back to my machine. So I'm going to click this icon because instead of the USB, I'm going to go get it off the cloud. Okay. That's why I decided only to do one, because you can only send one thing at a time. So now up here, I'm going to go back here. Let me move my tablet again here. Right here, see how I can get into these pieces? See how I can touch all the individual pieces and they turn red? So now I can move these around to where I want them. Okay, so now they're individual pieces. All I did was open it up in the software and send it back to the machine. Now it's an FCM file because I opened it up in my software. It's that easy. Okay. I didn't do anything to it. I didn't change anything. I just opened it up. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and put some of let's go ahead and do the big gather first. And the other thing I'm going to do right now, this whole thing, since we know this works and is all in different pieces, I'm going to hit the save button on my screen, and I'm going to save it in the machine. That way I can go back and get it again because, you know, we have several pieces to cut. So I'm just going to save it in my machine and click OK. And it says it's number 45. I've got a bunch of stuff in there. So So I'm going to just hit the little house button and go back to the beginning because I want to bring this up so you can see that it is actually in the machine now. And this way we can, here's 45. Here it is right here. Okay. So that way we know that we can get to the pieces of this when we need to. All right. So I want to just do gather. So I want the G and the ather. I don't want T. Now remember, we saved this in the machine. It's fine. I'm going to hit edit and I'm going to hit delete. I'm going to delete the E right now, the G. So I'm just deleting these. Remember, we saved it in the machine. It's okay. And the T. So let's just get rid of all of those. Okay. So here is ather and the G. And it doesn't matter where you put it. It just needs to fit on my fabric. So I'm just going to kind of stick it on here. I think it'll fit okay. And right now, maybe it'll be easier to see what we're doing. I'm just going to go ahead and object edit. Let's do the long one first. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this so that it fits the other direction. Like this, just so it's easier to see. And then the G, just going to turn it right side up. Okay. And I'm just going to work with those two pieces right now. And you want them to be fairly close so that everything fits on the same fabric. Then what I'm going to do with gather is I'm going to make sure it's close, not on my A, but I want it to be close to the A. And I think it'll be okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, I think that'll be okay. We're going to mirror those. Let's mirror the G. Okay. I think it'll be all right in there. We just want it to be close. All right. Because we got to have them both mirrored because we're going to cut this face down. That looks pretty good. Then I'm going to lay my fabric on my mat. We'll make sure that it all fits. If we need to move it around, we can. So I'm going to put my fabric on my mat face down, just like I did the other ones. I'm using my brayer. I've got them both mirrored, so we know everything's mirrored. Now the G is separate from the ather, so it doesn't matter where I put it on the screen. I must make sure I got them both mirrored. Yep. And okay. And then I'm going to hit okay one more time, and then I'm going to scan so I can see that I've got this in the right spot. So here's my gather. And most of the other pieces we can actually do together. It would be, Cindy, but it doesn't go away until the other one, the other scan that was there will not go away until you scan again. Okay. What is all the blue squares on the screen? I don't know what that means. Jan, I'm sorry. Blue squares on which screen? Up on the screen up here? I don't understand the question. The other scan was still there. Is that what you were talking about? Maybe. So let's get our G up here. Make sure everything fits. Okay, I'm just going to move it around until it's all on my fabric. It doesn't matter if it's, if it's the whole word, you can just lay it on here. So you can cut it out. If we're going to be good here, we'll move the G over just a little bit. There. Okay, they're all mirrored. Yeah, it was the other fabric scan is what it was. Now, the scan doesn't go away until you scan again. That's why it's a little confusing. I have to scan to make the last one go away. It's kind of like on the sewing machine. If you don't sew out, if you scan something and you don't sew the entire design out, the scan stays on there until you get rid of it. So this is the same way, but there's no way to delete it, which is kind of confusing. So, all right. So here is my whole piece of paper or my whole piece of fabric with my gather on it. It's mirrored. I'm going to click OK. Please select and cut. Okay, I'm going to click start. Let me bring this down so you can see. Is that, yeah, that's what you were talking about. Okay. Yeah, I find that very confusing too. I wish that they did that. I want to say it might have, when they came out with the DXs, it started doing that. I don't remember it doing that on the older machine because you could scan and then after you cut, it would go away. But this one stays until you scan again. And it seems like that was a change between the CM series and the DX series. Because I don't remember it always being like that. I mean, I've had a machine like this for a very, very long time. All right, so now it just did the G. It's doing the rest of the other. Yeah, so I wished it would do that too. I don't like that it leaves it there. So this is the two ways you have to work with the SVGs. If you need to have one design broken up into multiple colors, you need to just open it in the software and then send it back to the machine, and it will be available for moving it around, and the pieces are separated. It's just the SVG won't let you do that. All right, so let's see how we did here. So here's my G and my other. Woohoo! Okay, so here's the G, and we'll put these all back in the baggie too, so that we can keep them for. This will be for the bigger part of the pillow. So there's the G. I almost always cut letters like this out because they're so much easier, I think, to work with, and then trimming them in the hoop. I think they're a little hard to trim in the hoops. And there's my adder of gather. Isn't that pretty? So that'll be for the bigger piece. All right, so let me put these over here. And let's work on some of the other littler letters. Because those are already, again, I saved that in my machine so that I can go back now and I can get the rest of the letters and we can get rid of gather. All right, so let's go back and get the other one. So I'm going to hit the little house button to go back to the beginning. And then remember, we saved this in the machine so we can get back to it. So I'm going to retrieve the data from my machine. So when I know I need to go back to things, I like to save it in the machine. I can always delete them later if I want to. So here's the one that we did with the whole thing. So I'm just going to touch that one and click OK. Now, again, that stupid scan's still there, so don't let it confuse you. So now gather, we don't need gather anymore. So we're going to get rid of that. I'm going to touch other. Here's other, edit, and delete, and then get rid of the G because we don't need that. We've already cut it. And now we can cut these other letters, okay? So it might be easier if they were right side up. So I'm going to go ahead and just rotate them. I edit and rotate, so just so that they're right side up so I can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to, the O actually is sideways like that on the design, just so you know. So let's get the G. Let's just make them all this way so we can see the actual letters. And then we're gonna mirror all of these also. So I'm just gonna move these around the screen. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. There we go. That one didn't need to be. Okay, so I'm just gonna kind of move these around the screen. And so we can just lay our fabrics down approximately where they are. Now this is the bigger T, which is the, see what colors I use. Let me get my colors here. So the bigger T is the one that's 3.5 by 4, and I made that one green. So let me get my fabrics out here. So I made that one 3.5 by 4, and it was green. That's the bigger G. And then I kind of put that one down here. So we'll put it down this area. Okay, and then the smaller T, I made rust, and I made it 3 by 3.5. So let me get my rust fabric, and this is the other T. And so I kind of put it up here. So we'll just get them laid in this basic vicinity, and then we'll move our designs. And then the E, okay, is gold. And that one was 2.5 by 3.5. So I'll just lay this one up here. Looks about right. Okay, and then my G is the orange. Now this one, my fabric, I wanted it 3.5 by 3.5, but I didn't have quite enough fabric. Yes, you could start. To start over and on the home. Yeah, you could, but I saved it in the machine. You still have to go back and get your design. Okay, so that's the G for the, and then the last one is brown. I'm not sure if I can get these all on. Let's see. Might have to move them around a little bit. Let's see. I'm going to move these around so I can get them all on here. So we can cut them all out at the same time. Oh, I think I can. Here we go. I'll move the G up on the orange. That's why I wrote on the back of the papers that I knew what color it was, so I could, if I had to move things around a little bit. I think that'll work. And then my brown. Okay. So here's my fabrics down here. We're gonna use the brayer, make sure they're on there well. And I'm gonna just, I took my, oops, second here. This one, see, sometimes the papers will come off, just so you know. I'm gonna go ahead and pull my green paper off because this one's about to come off anyway. So I'm just gonna take that off. Sometimes the papers want to come off, and if they do, just remove them before you start cutting. Here's the brown. Okay, then I'm going to load my bag back in. I like to cut with the paper on if I can, just because sometimes the blade holder kind of catches on the shiny part of the heat and bond. So I try to cut with paper on if I absolutely can. So, all right. So now we know these all now need to be mirrored as well. So let's go ahead and mirror them. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to go ahead and mirror them all. So let's just touch the first. We'll just kind of go in order here because I know this one's going to be kind of up here. So object edit. Oh my God. Let's do the T first. And we're going to mirror it. Okay. Click OK. Then I'm going to go get the E. And I'm going to object edit and mirror. Right. Okay. Then I'm going to get my G. Object edit. Mirror. Okay. Now I'm going to get the second T. Object edit. Mirror. Okay. And then here's the O. Object edit. Mirror. So if you're not sure, just go back and check. You know, you can, if you touch it, you can see that the blue little dots on there. Okay. Blue little dots on all of them. Okay, so I know I've got them all mirrored. Okay, I'm going to click OK. I've got them all on there at the same time. I'm going to hit the little scanning button, and I'm going to hit Start. And Cindy, I'm not sure what your question that you couldn't click on Home and start over. I'm not positive what that means. Can you be a little more specific for me? All right, so it's scanning my fabrics. So here's all my fabrics, and my green doesn't have the paper on it, but that's okay. All right. So I have my rust, my large T is on the rust, so I had that kind of there. So here it is. Let's go back up here so you can see. Put it above it. Okay, so there's all my fabric, and I have my larger T on the rust. No, I'm sorry, the smaller T is on the rust. Yeah, the bigger one's on the green. Here we go. The bigger one's on the green down here. And then the E is going to be on my gold. Make sure that's on there. And then my G is on the orange. And that one I have to be a little careful because my fabric wasn't any too big. I was running out of fabric. Here's my T for my green. Okay, and then here's the O for here's the brown for the O. Okay, so we got all of the letters on there, all on the correct fabric. So see, this way, we were able to get into all the different pieces of it because we opened it up in the software. All right, so there's all of our pieces. We're going to click OK. There they are. We're going to click please select. I've already used the brayer and all my fabric. I'm going to cut and I'm going to hit start. And like I said earlier, you can definitely use your rotary blade if you want to for this. I would probably tell you to cut it right side up and use a standard mat without the heat and bond fabric on the back, or the paper, I should say. It just takes forever to cut with the rotary blade. That's why I'm doing this with the regular one, because it takes like less than half the time. Actually, it's about a quarter of the time. So I still cut most of my fabric with a regular blade. I do like the rotary blade, but I like it for like the fabric that was really hard to cut, like felt, for instance. So I've been cutting most of my felts and stuff with my rotary blade. All right, so we're getting our letters cut out. And then we'll do the last section. And that is going to be section 3, and that one has mostly letters in it. And the pumpkin. Somebody asked about the pumpkin. So there's the E. And the last T. I think we did it. All right, let's see. So we'll cut it. Well, I just wanted to cut all of these out for you so you could just see me cut all of them. So there's the T in the rust. So this is the smaller T. This was the second one. So there's that one. Okay. My T. Put that down here. And here's the E in the gold. And you can see it's cut very well. So here's the E. And the G. I find the Scan and Cut cuts fabric very well. I've always used Heat and Bond Light. It works very well in the machine. Now, see, this one doesn't have the paper on it, but see, it's still cut very well. No problem. If it comes off, it's okay. So there's the bigger T. This is the first letter. Okay. And then here's the O. I don't know if you can see it very well. Here's the O. Pull this one out. There we go. There's the O. All right. So we got all the letters cut out for that's section 2. So let's go back and I'll share my screen again and we'll do section 3. Second, we'll do section 3. So hopefully you're still able to hear me, because I think I forgot to change the microphone. No, I think we're good. Maybe I forgot to change my mic, but I think you can hear me okay. All right. So let's go back and let me share my screen again. And let's go get section 3 and do that one. Give me a second. Setting. Whoops. I always have to hit the right buttons. You can hear me okay? Good. So I'm going to share my screen. And we'll go back and do the other one. Share. Go back to Canvas Workspace. I'm still logged in. And then we're going to do, I got to get my section 3 up here. I'm going to put these in my baggie first. I'm going to stick these in the baggie before I lose anything. Just a second. Like I said, I don't have a whole lot of fabric, so I don't want to lose any of my pieces. So I get my gather in here too. But you can see it takes a little while to do this. I mean, it's not hard. The thing that took me the longest was just getting the fabric ready. You know, I had to get the fabrics prepared too. Okay, so section 3 is going to be the pumpkin, a couple leaves, and the rest of the words together. So it's H, E, and R, and then it's a bunch of other little pieces. Well, obviously there's a whole bunch of different colors also. So this is going to be in the same situation as the last one. So I need to do this one the same way. I'm going to hit the SVG button. I'm going to hit choose file. Hopefully you can see my screen okay. Choose file, and then I'm going to go to part 3. And again, this one's going to open up, and it's going to have all these bits and pieces all over it. So click OK. And then here's all the pieces. So we got, you know, piece of acorn. Here's the acorn pieces, the HER of gather. Okay. The rest of the letters were on the other one. Okay. And then here's another leaf, a smaller leaf. There's a stem for the pumpkin and the pumpkin. All right. So we're going to cut all these out too. And we'll be able to do some of these together. All right. So all I'm going to do then, I just opened it up. Oh, Kate, well, why I like, I'm trying to read your questions as I'm doing this. I like the Canvas Workspace Online better than the other one because as a teacher, I've struggled with it because the PC version of the online or of the on the computer software looks different than the Mac version. This version that I'm on right now that is online looks the same for everybody. And I also think it's easier. It doesn't give you some of this stuff. And there's things you have to do in the other one. But if you're just doing basic stuff like this is way easier. And I don't like the other one because of all the icons. I like to have words. I can read faster than I can hover a mouse. The other one has all these icons, so it takes me twice as long to find everything. So anyway, this is the one I usually use. I've been using it for, I don't know, ever since Scan and Cut came out. So, all right. So here are our parts. I'm just going to hit download. I'm going to click Scan and Cut Transfer because I'm going to send it wirelessly to my machine. It is there. Okay. Now I'm actually done with this. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to the other camera. And I'm going to switch. I'll remember to switch the mic this time. So let me switch to, oops, stop sharing. There's my camera. And let me switch my mic this time. So when I turn this way,
you can hear me better. Okay. Yes, you can cut the embroidery leather the same way. Yes, because it will cut well on here. With the embroidery leather, I think I probably would still cut it face down. I've done it both ways and it works and it cuts fine. The embroidery leather cuts fine on the machine. And you can cut it right side up, but I have a tendency to turn everything right side down. So whichever works for you. But yes, it works fine. Okay, so we're going to go back up here and find our design that we just sent. I'm trying to get above so you can get the glare off. Takes a little bit here. Okay, I'm going to hit the house button to go back to the beginning. I'm going to retrieve my data from the cloud. This is going to be part 3. So I'm going to look at my paper here. I've got all my pieces. Here's all my pieces all cut out in a baggie. And let's see. I think I'm going to do, let's do a bunch of the little pieces together. So let's do like the green leaf, maybe the little stem for the pumpkin, the leaf. Let's see what else is here. Here's our acorn pieces. Let's not do the, see, I'm touching them and they're all individual designs now. So I'm just going to, let's get rid of the letters. So let's hit edit and delete. And then delete. And I forgot to save this in my machine, but I'll show you how to fix this. So if that happens again, Let's just go back and I'll show you how to fix that. I like to save it in the machine because then I always have it there. So until you put another design into the cloud, it's still here. All right. So if I had put the second design in here when I started to do that, then it would have covered up the first one. So I'm just going to hit save right now and save this in the machine. So I have it. But I like cutting the fabric. It's really fun. And this is number 46, just so you know. All right. So now we're going to get rid of our letters. Let's just get rid of the letters, edit and delete. We're going to do some of the little pieces first. Oops. Sorry, hit the wrong button. Delete. And then get rid of the R. We'll do those later. Okay. And then let's get rid of the pumpkin for right now. And then we'll do that separate. Okay. So now I've got like my acorn pieces, my stem. I'm just looking at my piece of paper here. So here's the piece of paper. I have a little leaf that's 2 by 2. I have that little stem that's dark brown that's 2 by 2. I have a gold leaf, the bottom of my acorn, and the top of my acorn. Okay, so that's what I'm going to got on here right now. So here's my little, trying to find the little pieces here. There we go. There's those 2 little pieces, and my leaf, and my other leaf, and my stem. Okay. So we need the green. Let me get my fabric out here. I'll put this down so you can see me do my fabric. Oops. So we'll cut the pumpkin out in a minute. So let's lay my orange over there. Let's see, we need the green. The smaller green leaf is a little green piece that's 2 by 2. So here's this one. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I put that on there. So I'll put this up here on the mat. And then I need my dark brown for the stem. So there's a little brown piece for the stem. That's a stem. Put that face down. And then I needed a gold piece for a leaf. So here's my gold leaf. So I'll put this up here. And this is the bottom of my acorn. So here's this little piece here. So let's put this down here. We'll cut all these little pieces together. Okay. And then here is the acorn top. So we'll put this down here. I'm going to get my brayer. Make sure these are all down. Okay. So these were like 2 by 2, all of these little pieces. And then this one, the gold leaf was 3.5 by 2.5 right here. All right. So now we're going to get all those pieces, and I'm going to scan first so we know where my fabric is. So let's go up here, click OK, and then we're going to click the scan button to get rid of these other scans. I wish the other scans would go away. On the machine, you can actually delete them. You know, you can get the scan to go away, but you can't on this one. Oh, Margaret, you use your scan and cut for most of your applique? I do some of the time, but I don't all the time. It just depends on what I'm doing. All right, so here's all of our little pieces. So the leaf was green. So here's this little leaf, okay? And it's green. Now we need to do the mirroring. So you get up a little bit higher, you might be able to see a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to hit Edit, Object Edit, and Mirror. So I just mirrored it and just make sure that it still fits on your fabric. Looks pretty good. And then the second one was the stem. So here's my stem. I touched it. I'm going to mirror it. All right. And then here's my acorn top. Now the acorn top's down over here. I've got this in the wrong spot, so it needs to go over here. Here's my gold. Here's my acorn top. This one needs to go in here. And then let's, whoops, second here. That's tan. This is my acorn top. I need to move it over one. That's why I'm glad I wrote it on a piece of paper, on the back of the paper, then I can tell. So there's my acorn top. Here's the bottom of my acorn. It goes over here. And then I'll hit mirror for that one. And then I want my leaf to be on the gold up here. And then we'll mirror that one. Okay, so let's make sure they're all mirrored. So I'm just going to touch each one. Okay, And if you want to, just to make sure that you know that you got it just right, you can always hit OK in between. But I'm just going to touch the green leaf. That one's mirrored. My stem. Okay, yeah, my dark stem, my green leaf, my gold leaf, and then the bottom of my acorn. Everything shows mirrored. Okay, and I always check them to make sure. Okay, and then I'm going to hit OK. So now all of those pieces are on there. All right, and now I can hit OK. OK one more time, and now we can hit please select and cut. So now we can cut these. And it's going to cut all those little pieces together, and we'll cut all the letters together. We might even be able to do the pumpkin, I think, too. So I've got only a few pieces left to cut. So you can see it takes a little while, but the hardest thing about these was, you know, with SVGs, I get this question every time. You know, all of the SVG files come in this way into the scan and cut, and they come in grouped. And you need to open them in the software to ungroup them. And you can see how easy it was. It was so simple. You don't have to do anything. You just open them and send them back to the machine. So it makes it really fast and easy. But you do have to do that to get to the pieces of them. All right, so let's see how we did here. So here's my green leaf. And this is for the pumpkin. This is the leaf for the pumpkin. Okay, so here's my green leaf. And here's my stem for the pumpkin. Here's my little stem. Okay. And then here's my gold leaf. And this is up with the pumpkin. Like that. And then my acorn. Here's the bottom of the acorn. Okay. And here's the top of the acorn. I still cut in the hoop quite a bit, Jan. These were such small pieces, and especially the wreath, I thought it was easier, and I like to cut cursive letters out with the scan and cut. But it does take some time to do this. It's not something that, obviously, you know, we've been working at this for about an hour and a half, because it does take a little while to do this. Okay, so we got all of those pieces. So now we're going to work on, let me find my baggie. I don't want to lose my little pieces over here. So we'll put the little pieces in the baggie here. Okay. And then I'm going to do the letters. So let's do the letters and the pumpkin. These are all applique pieces that are sewn down, Kate. So you need to, when you cut on fabric with the scan and cut, if you're not using like Terrial Magic, you want to, I always use heat and bond, and I want to bond them down, because if it's cut the right size and it's not bound down to your background fabric, it will move. So I use this as a bonding agent, and yes, it makes it easier to cut because it's stable. Okay. This is all applique. And so what I'm going to do is when I go, I'm going to do the placement lines, and I'm going to take my little iron and I'm going to iron the fabric down to my background fabrics for all of these. All right, so I think now we need to go back and get that same design from the machine, since I saved it there. And let's get the pumpkin and the other letters. So here's the letters. So we don't need the leaf. So I'm going to go ahead and go in here, and we'll just touch the leaf. We'll get rid of the parts that we've already cut. So here's the little acorn and the bottom of the acorn. When you are cutting with the scan and cut, you have to use some sort of stabilizer for your fabric. Either Terrial Magic, which is an incredibly stiff starch, or you have to use heat and bond. Okay, so let's just put the letters up here roughly where they're going to go, and then we'll put the pumpkin at the bottom. Yes, you can use the rotary blade to cut these as well. I don't think I'm going to use it tonight because I don't have it set up for the rotary blade tonight. No, the heat and bond is still on, Kate. It's just the paper that came off. The heat and bond has it adheres on one side to the fabric, and the other side is a piece of paper that you peel off, and then that's what's going to stick down to your background fabric. So it's fine the way it is. The paper, I like to cut with the paper on if I can, but sometimes it comes off because it gets dry. And then it's still going to be adhere though. So the heat and bond is still on there. It's just the paper that came off. The protective paper over the back of it. Okay. So now we need to get all of these. We got all of our papers. We got all of our letters up here. I'm going to go ahead and put my fabric down. So let's see. Part 3. So my H is going to be red. So I'm just going to lay the red on here. And then my E is brown. Lay the brown fabric on. So I'm just going to lay these on that mat. Okay, and then my R is gold. So put the gold on here. So here's my fabric. And then I'm going to put the pumpkin on. So here's the pumpkin. All right. Yes, Jackie, if you want to see me working with the rotary blade, I did a whole class just with the rotary blade. So you can go back and look at that video with just the rotary blade and how I use it. I don't have everything set up tonight because I have to go back and change a setting. And that's why I'm not using it tonight. Okay, so here's our H, E, and R, and the pumpkin, which is going to be the orange. All right, so let's go ahead, hit OK, and then scan so that we can see where all of our fabric is. So yeah, so the papers, let me see if Kate, if this makes more sense to you. I'm just going to grab one of these out. The paper that's on the back is just a protective coating for the heat and bond. So here's my acorn. Can you see the shiny? That's actually the heat and bond. Okay. So what happens is it bonds on the fabric and on your background fabric for your applique. All right. So it's like two-sided adhesive. All right. So but if the paper comes off, it's okay. I like to leave it on if I can. Okay. So we need to mirror. So I'm going to pull my H, my E. Thank you for reminding me, whoever. Oh, it was Renee. Thank you, Renee. Okay. And then the R. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and pull them down, and then pull our pumpkin down a little bit, and then we'll do the mirroring. Okay. So here's the H. Edit. Object edit. Hit the mirror button. Okay. Select the E. Hit the mirror button. R, and you can hit OK in between if you want to make sure, but you don't have to. And here's the R, mirror. And then here's the pumpkin, and hit the mirror button. Okay, and I'm just going to verify that I have them all mirrored. I'm going to click the R again. I know the pumpkin is. R is, E is, and H is. Yep. Now I can hit OK. OK, one more time. I think we're good. I'm just to make sure that everything's still on my fabric here. Looks pretty good. R and the pumpkin. I think the pumpkin needs to move over. There we go. All right. So hit OK. There's my letters and my pumpkin. I'm going to click cut. It's going to be about 2 minutes. That's why I'm doing it with a regular blade, because if I would do this with the rotary blade, it takes a lot longer. All right, so this is my wreath ones. This is gather, and then this is the ones I'm doing for these. Okay. So we're going to have all of our pieces cut out. I don't normally teach the embroidery like this, but I just wanted to do something different. And I thought, well, we'll just do it this way. I'll show you a couple little hints with the, whoops, uh-oh. Got a piece of paper. I got a fabric that moves, see? So hopefully I have a little piece more of that brown. Did pretty well not to mess up anything except one piece. Hopefully I have another little piece of that brown fabric. And here's the orange. Yep, so hopefully I have another little piece of this. I'll have to go check. So this is the, which was the letter on the brown? I can't remember. The E. So I'll have to go back and cut the E after class. So whoops. You always have to have at least one mishap, you know. I've done pretty good, and everything else has turned out fine. How often do you have to change the sheet that you're applied? You know, I don't have to very often. I think that's why I've kind of gone back to using the high-tech adhesive sheets, because if you keep them clean and you clean, like after I do all this cutting, I'm going to take a baby wipe and really clean them off. So here's my H, here's my R. I'll have to go back and fix my E again. And here's the R. Here's my pumpkin. So I don't have to very often. I actually, you know, they get not so sticky, but see, you can tell there's little pieces of fabric on here. So if you take a baby wipe and just give them a good clean, it cleans them off. All right. And I've kind of gone back to using the sheets because the fabric mats don't stay sticky too long. And I've yet to find a way that I can make them sticky again. I'm struggling with that because I haven't found a way that I can make them sticky. Like with the other mats, I can use baby wipes and clean them. And then after a while, I can go back and I can restick them. But I can't do that with the fabric mat. It doesn't ever get sticky enough again. If it's not sticky, it just doesn't get sticky enough. So I've gone back to using these sheets. They're a lot less expensive and they're easy to take on and off. So, all right. So I'll go back and fix my E in a little while. So here's my R, my pumpkin, and my H. Okay, and I'll fix my E after class. But you know, you don't usually have at least one mishap when you're doing this. All right, let me get, here's my baggie with all those pieces. Put my pumpkin and my R and my H in there. And I'll fix my E. All right. Yeah, they're called high-tack adhesive sheets. For those of you who don't have the DX model machines, you have to use the high-tack adhesive sheets. There's not, they're just a plastic sheet that goes on top of another mat. And the old machines, if you have a CM model machine, you have to use these. But the DXs, you can use that new fabric mat, and it's wonderful. But I've found that it gets not sticky really quick, and then I can't figure out how to sticky it up enough again. So anyway, I've kind of gone back to these old high-tech adhesive sheets. So, okay. So give me a second. Let me switch over my mic and camera again. Does anybody have any questions? Did it help you just to have me just cut so you could see what I was doing?
I was hoping that if I just cut it all out from start to finish, you would just see. And yeah, you always have a mishap. I mean, like I said, I can go back and fix this. I hope I have enough of that brown fabric that I can fix it. I didn't have much fabric left, so I'm praying I have enough brown fabric. Otherwise, it may just be a different color brown. So anyway, so this is the section 3. So I'll probably go ahead and just, attach these again to my papers so that I have them all attached. This was section 3, which is going to be part of the gather together long thing. And then this is gather. This was section 2. Okay, part 2. Put that baggie with that. Those were all okay. And then this was the part 1, which was all the different pieces for this is for the wreath part of it. So I'll put those all together. Okay. So next week, we're going to start on the pillow. So next week, we're going to do the top. So we're going to do this in a little different order. We're actually going to embroider This whole braid is done as an embroidery design. And so we're going to do the embroidery design. And we're going to actually piece the top, because I actually do all of the top. I piece the whole thing before I do the embroidery, and we're going to quilt it before we do the embroidery. So we're going to have like it all quilted before we start in any embroidery. Okay. Because I like the embroidery underneath my appliques. So we're going to start with the braid and the top assembly next week. Okay. And then we'll do quilting the following week. All right. Okay. So thank you so much for joining me. And I hope you enjoyed seeing the scan and cut. It's pretty cool. If you need to watch some of the earlier videos I did with the cutting, they're on YouTube. So go to my YouTube channel, like the videos, and also subscribe. And it's YouTube. It's Sew Along with Jan. And then under the playlist, Brother Scan and Cut, and it's in there. Okay. It's something that I haven't really done before, so I thought it would be helpful for people to do the whole thing. So, but go back and watch some of the other basic videos, and it'll help you with some more of the preparations and stuff. So, but SVGs are a little different to work with. You got to use a little software, and it's not hard. So, all right. So I will see everybody next week, and we will do some. We'll start working on that braid. The braid's really fun to do. So that's what we're going to work on next week. So thanks, everybody. Have a good week. Bye.